Very much. Welcome everyone to
Thank
our
you.
first series of the ASEAN Farmers COVID-19 learning program. It is just that, it's been a challenging couple of months, from Indonesia across the world, and farmers were at the forefront of this, pandemic and still continue to take the challenge and be out there to continue to make sure that all of the ASEAN and the whole food supply chain continue to be productive and delivering the food and nutrition to all the farmers and the population at large, and continue to provide stabilities to food and etc. So welcome Pak Gusti from AmCham Indonesia. Welcome Roger Navarro from Philmais. Mr. Chai Imon from Malaysia Vegetable Growers Association, Mr. Wong Si Yi from Cameron Highlands Agriculture. So you all are the faces to the daily challenges on the field. So as most of the economy are right now trying to undo or what they call move into recovery stage, and also you are aware that many governments have created task force under the new economic task force, trying to hear, listen, and also learn by hearing from the stakeholders on the ground, especially you as a farmer, the frontier of the challenges in terms of making sure that you have the input, the technology, whether it's from seeds, whether it's from crop protection materials, and also the whole interaction with market in terms of transportation and market access technology, and also where the policy, when certain directions was given, Roger, you will know when the movement control was put into place, the green pass and etc. So a lot of challenges and things to be learned. So what we thought today is, as we go through what you call the program today for the next hours, to hear from you so that we can collect your input and work it together with the ASEAN Secretariat, because we've been having direct communication with ASEAN Secretariat to make sure that as ASEAN move into continue to have a open trade, be able to take on and hear from the challenges to make sure that when policies are put in place, all the farmers and the value chain continue to be protected, and etc. So with that, maybe can I get Pak Gusti for you to do 1 minute of introduction of yourself, and we go to Pak what you call Roger, and then we get Mr. Wong and Mr. Chai 1-2 minutes to say where you're from, and then we'll kickstart the discussion. Pak Gusti.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So, hi everyone. My name is Gusti. Sorry, my full name is Gusti Kahari, by the way. I'm the Director of Government Relations at AmCham. So just a little bit of introduction of what AmCham is. AmCham is American Chamber of Commerce. We are a voluntary organization of professionals with commercial activities in Indonesia. So our central mission is to promote U.S.-Indonesia commercial relations, to serve its member as a key resource for information and business networking. Currently, we have more than 250 companies from different industries, sectors, and also organizations. So we are not an agriculture or a farmer association. However, we do have several of our members are a high-profile agriculture companies. Within our chambers, we have one committee or a working group. We call it Food and Agriculture Committee. It's an event where the industry meet and share policy and also concern. So I guess that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Gusti. Roger Navarro, sir, over to you. Roger, can you hear us? Is your mic on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. Good morning to everyone. This is Roger Navarro. Let me first introduce our group. Our group is Philippine Maize Federation. This is a corn farmers group from all over the 16 regions of the country. We are the corn farmers in the country is about 1 million. We have about 2.5 million hectares of corn land throughout the 16 regions. And we are having a total volume of productions of about 8 million metric tons of corn. And this is a very challenging times for all of us, especially with the new norms we call the under COVID-19. So we hope that we will be able to share some insights, experience, so that we'll be able to really understand where we are going to and what particular things we need to do in the future so that we'll be able to at least contribute in the food security for our country. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Selamat po. Mr. Chai, can you share with us what do you do in Cameron Highland?
Yeah, good morning, sirs. My name is Che Imong. I'm the Secretary General for the Federation of Malaysian Vegetable Growers Association, where we have about 28 branches of these associations in the whole country. Currently, I'm doing organic farming, more on temperate types of vegetables in Cameron Highlands since 1996. So we supply, there's more to my company, we supply these organic veggie mainly to the Klang Valley near Kuala Lumpur. So in the country, we have about 6,000 members. There's vegetable growers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chai. Good morning, Mr. Wong. Over to you.
Good morning, Mr. Tan. I'm Wong Siang Hee. I'm the secretary for the Cameron Highland Agricultural Cooperative Association. We have members across Cameron Highland that who are doing tourism, flower production, and vegetable production. During this COVID-19, we found a lot of problem with the flower and the vegetable export as well. So later on, we will discuss those matters individually. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Again, welcome panelists. It's going to be a very interesting 1-hour talk. So let me start off with the first conversation which we wanted to do is on, let me move this piece here. So the first piece that we want to cover today will be on labor shortage. So, all of us ASEAN has a very large migratory labor movement between whether it's from Thailand to Myanmar, vice versa, and Indonesia into Malaysia. And Mr. Chai is from Cameron Highland. He knows the best where the labor issues are because they have a significant population of what you call imported workers to help manage the agriculture sector. So I think throughout this piece, as the MCO comes in from labor movement to renewal of licenses and also the dislocation in terms of getting farmers into the country. So with that tone, maybe let's start with Mr. Chai on what do you see, what are the learnings that we should tell the government in dealing with labor shortage on the ground during this MCO period and moving into the MCO period. So over to Mr. Chai first.
Well, looking at our industry, not only in Cameron Highlands, but as a whole in our country, local workers are not interested. Malaysians are not so keen to work in the farm. So we got to depend quite a lot of these manpower from foreign workers, especially from Indonesia, Bangladesh, Nepal, and even India. To get these workers, I think more towards the government policy, because certain industry, they will not accept, government not allow them to work in the sectors. So for agriculture, we are still a bit lucky that government allowed us to recruit workers from various countries. So the problem now faced by farmers, especially the industry during COVID time, is that quite a lot of these so-called Muslim workers have gone back to their country, to Indonesia or Bangladesh for their Ramadan festival.
Yep.
So until today, about 10% of them are still, we will say, disallowed to come back because of the movement. And prior to that, we have also experienced about 20% shortage of workers. So during this time, prices of vegetables and even supply of vegetable also getting less because of this quite acute shortage of labor. And especially in Cameron Highlands, we need about 13,000 workers for an area of about 10,000 acres. So this shortage of workers have affected our management, affected our supply. So farmers have no choice but to slow down the pace. And even certain crops such as tomato, chilies, beans, these are, it needs high labor intensive. We got to slow down. And that's why during COVID, we are a bit worried about the supply of vegetables in the country. Even we think we might face agro-food crisis since local supply is getting lesser, and also maybe the importation also will face some sanction. To recruit workers, we are having a problem now because the government policy they have frozen the intake or recruitment of new workers during this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chai. Yes, we are aware of that. Even not only you, the plantation industry is short of 500,000 workers. But despite that, about 130,000 workers have gone back to Indonesia during the Ramadan period. So I think there's a disbalance in terms of that what you call inability to recruit and bring in. Of course, the major concern is still how to create a green bubble between the countries and also probably the testing. So having said that, maybe Pak Gusti, can you tell us, is there any discussion between the government policies to to make sure that our farmers or the Indonesian workers are able to work and make income? I mean, gain income. There's a lot of oversupply of what do you call people without job in Indonesia right now. Is there something that Pak Jokowi is in discussion to make sure that we continue to have job creation, whether it's domestic movement for agriculture or export of labor to other countries?
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, I'm trying to find the file here where it shows how many of our economic policy packages actually trying to help those. Okay, so I think right now we have around if I'm not mistaken, around 500 trillion, which equals to somewhere around 30 billion for that's for our budget for COVID-19 handling. And from that 500 trillion, a good 40% of them are for social protection. Mm-hmm. We give social assistance, pre-working assistance, to electricity discount and we also give protection for logistical food and basic food, and cash transfer as well. So the government have been paying attention, especially for those people who are coming from abroad, which have been also a difficult time for I think for our government to not to accept them, but to make sure that they are not coming back here to import more cases, more COVID-19 cases. So we have been, I've seen that we have been struggling to try to make sure that everyone who comes here have been tested. But as far as I can see, the government has been doing a tremendous job given the situation to accept to filter those who coming in by putting them in a quarantine and also providing the right social protection for them to be able to survive during this moment.
Thank you, Pa. So, back to the Philippines, Roger. So you were on one of the first country to really have the community-based lockdown. So, what is your impact to your farmers, and have things moved a bit more better in terms of productivity or your ability to continue to produce in the Philippines for the maize industry?
Well, in the country, the average age of farmers is 57. No? So meaning 70% out of the 57 is senior citizen already, more than 60.
Yep.
No? So, and we have a problem because in COVID, we must all remember that if you are a senior citizen or over 60, you are already vulnerable with the COVID infection. So we really do have problems in terms of labor, farm workers in the field, considering that all of those are already in the age of 60. No? So whenever you go to your farms, then you will be subjected to the quarantine and to the checkpoints that you will not be permitted to go to your farms. No? So these are one of the biggest challenges that we have. But recently, our Department of Agriculture has issued for the farmers so that they will be able to go to their farm. They have issued a ATF or the task force ID for all the farmers to go to the farm. No? So they have a issuance of ID as frontliners. So they are part of the services service provider for agriculture. So they were given free access in the checkpoint to go to their farm. So that it was a big relief because now you can go to the farm. Even I myself can already go to the farm. But during the time when it was started, for example, last March, May, and April, and now June, you can just imagine 3 months without labor component in your farm. It's really a big problem. Right now in the Philippines, to give you just an information, we are already planting corn. And our corn is already about 2 weeks. And some of the areas, for example, in Luzon, they have planted, but unfortunately, it's been 3 weeks now. They have no rain. Wow. So, and then some of the areas, for example, in Region 5 and some other regions, they are still preparing for the land for planting. But in Mindanao, it's already started planting, and right now we are having good rainfall. So we believe and we expect that there will be a good harvest for corn, for example, this coming first cropping.
Thank you, Roger. Now, going back to one of the earlier problems that Mr. Chai and Mr. Wong accounted during the initial lockdown of MCO about getting our products into the market, because the whole sector, whether it's from restaurant, whether it's hypermarket, everybody now needs to recalibrate how the supply chain have to redo all the projection for cultivation. So, Mr. Wong, how do you see, is the situation improving? Are your members getting products more effectively into the market? Is there anything that the government has done to make things different to ensure your producers gets to market in time? Mr. Wong.
All right, Mr. Tan, I would like to share a little bit. Initially, during the lockdown, the farmer and whether be it the vegetable grower and the flower grower, we couldn't get our product moved out to the export market as well as for the local market as well. So very creatively, that some of the local farmer, especially the young generation, they will be able to sell their vegetable to online via social media like WhatsApp, Facebook, and they try to market it to the local market. And for the export market, especially for the flower industry, our association, the Flower Association, another association that I attached with, that we wrote to the government that the flower is an essential agricultural product that we need to export to various areas like Australia and Japan. So the government gives us a lot of assistance to help us to get through to export flower. Whereas for the vegetable, and the government is trying to engage with the local farmer association, trying to get them to this online and help them to distribute out their product, their produce to the local market. Not much in the initial helping or the effort yet was because there is a big, huge issue. I saw it later in the discussion, transportation and market access. Yeah. So from here, we see there's a lot of things for us to learn during the lockdown because the whole supply chain, especially the transportation, has a disruption on it. So our local farmer, we are getting helps from the government that food are listed as an essential item. So the farmer could easily get the permission from the International Trade Affairs, the department, and as well as the nearest police department to get the clearance, the letter, permission for them to ship their vegetable to the city. So that is the initial picture that the farmer can sort of to move a little bit of their goods to the end user.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chai. So, sorry, Mr. Wong. Mr. Chai, what do you think right now? Like you said, the production is probably down by 20 to 30%, also because of market dislocation and also supply and demand from the other sectors such as restaurant, etc. So, you know, Lazada has come in to help Cameron Highland, and I'm also one of the buyers of your Cameron Highland produce via internet. So, what else do you think the government should or can support you to mitigate the current production issue or market access issue, Mr. Wong? Sorry, Mr. Chai.
Yeah, as what Mr. Wong said just now during the early stage of MCO, so we feel a bit lucky that vegetables are considered as an essential items, so we don't have much interference. We can still supply and we can still produce our vegetables. But at that early stage, we face so-called marketing access because so-called restaurants, eateries, and some of these open market are closed because of this
COVID.
CO. And one of our major wholesale markets in Kuala Lumpur also closed down because they have been detected with certain cases of pandemic. And we need sanitization and also quarantine. So during the time, I will say farmers in the country they face about 30% of vegetable which is not sellable due to this market access. So they caught and forced to dump or dispose of these vegetables. These are great waste to our industry. And now from that onwards, after almost 1 month, so things back to normal and supply back to the wholesale market. And now, even now, we will say RMCO, we can supply our vegetable directly to wholesale markets around Kuala Lumpur and other towns area. So what I think the government need to do is to have more these cold rooms chamber around the town area so that supply of vegetables will be sufficient. And also during MCO, transportation have been affected because of crossing the border and also getting the permits, regulation, comply to the regulations. And I will say maybe after 2 months, supply of vegetables to wholesale hypermarket and supermarket have been increased tremendously because buyers prefer to go to get supply from this area outlets rather than the wholesale market because uncertainty of the operating time and also a risk of having this pandemic in that congested circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chai. So, Pak Gusti, you mentioned, Pak Jokowi has put in a few $1 billion in the agriculture space and various other industry to support. So, what are you seeing and the impact or the current movement in terms of getting affordable, affordable food and managing the whole dislocation in food supply to Jakarta itself, and of course Indonesia is so big. What are you seeing or you're hearing on the ground?
Well, I think Jakarta, Indonesia, like other countries, is no different. We're struggling to get things going. For example, so right now we're on the relaxation phase. We're trying to reopen the economy gradually. I mean, prior to this restriction, central government, even though the central government has given exemption to agriculture industry to operate under a special operational and mobility permit, provincial government can issue additional restrictions, which are sometimes different from the central policies. This gap created confusion and disruption to the whole supply chain. I think while the government has given another difficulties that we're seeing, even though the government has given exemption to the food industry, the food supply chains, consists not only the food processing facilities, but also the packaging material, the food additive, and other food supporting industry. Now, those industry previously didn't get exemption. Based on our conversation with our members, they need to provide an order letter to other food supporting industries so that these suppliers could continue operating. However, sometimes implementation was not smooth, especially in provincial government. I think that's the biggest problem that we're facing. Before, we're still learning right now, but that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Pak Gusti. Like you said, everybody had the same problem. Even down to Roger when his MCO their local MCO, it was very strict because only the father or the what do you call, the leader of the family is allowed to go out. So, Roger,
Yeah.
you have said now you as a farmer can now go out and farm. And so coming back is that how are you getting your things to market? You know, you're going to be harvesting in about another 40 to 50 days from now. Is the market ready? Is the transportation ready? Is the cold room ready? If you're doing sweet corn, I know you do a lot of animal feed related, you know. So what are you seeing from
Well,
Secretary Dar?
Yeah, actually, we really have a big challenge for the industry, you know. So we must all remember that our GDP towards agriculture is declining from 12% to now about 8.9%, no? So in other words, the agriculture sector is going down in terms of growth. And in the advent of COVID, we really experienced a big problem in market access, no? And unlike probably with the previous speaker who says that they already have a online platform, we in the Philippines have no online platform in terms of corn. It was just good that during this COVID, we had a special hearing in Congress tackling the pending House bill on the warehouse receipt law, whereby this will pave the way for a commodity exchange system. So this will be a marketing platforms using online or using technology, you know. So the only challenge probably with this is that we should be able to put up the necessary infrastructure, corn storage from each production area, so that it will at least guarantee the supply, quality, and the volume for the end users. Right now, it's a good thing that PhilMais or the corn farmers has a good linkage with the Feed Millers Association. They call them Philippine Association of Feed Millers. We have a good market linkage, and the only challenge really is that from Mindanao, for example, going to Manila, because there are a number of boats that comes and go right now in the advent of COVID, no. In terms of national intervention, there is now ongoing talks that the government is going to give 56 billion pesos as a stimulus package for the farming industry. We have been part of the planning as to how the 56 billion pesos be allocated in each commodity items in the agriculture. So we believe that this will pave the way for our advocacy for the warehouse receipt and the commodity exchange later, and putting up the necessary infrastructure whereby we can guarantee quality and volume in terms of to satisfy the needs of the feed millers. We must all remember that we only have 2 croppings of corn.
Yep.
And we cannot just use the first cropping or the second cropping just for one day. We need to store them in the next 365 days, because the first cropping will at least guarantee you for the 5-month supply. The second cropping will at least guarantee you for the 7-month, so that you'll be able to complete the 12-month cycle of 1 year. But if there are no infrastructure in place, and then we will have a problem. So that's why we're saying that in the warehouse receipt law that will be still in Congress, this will pave the way for the commodity exchange, whereby farmers now will be guaranteed of their prices, and users also will be guaranteed of the supply. No? So there will be a stabilization of price and stabilization of supply also. So your income will become predictable with this kind of arrangement. No?
Totally agree with you, Roger, because one of the major challenges across Asia Pacific is the ability to store and post-harvest processing, you know, whether it's for corn and vegetable, like Mr. Che and Mr. Wong said, you know, how can we get cold room closer to the market so that we can really help and preserve, because it's hard work with the dislocation in terms of farmer and etc. So as I move on to the next question, all of us work in a just-in-time system. Pak Gusti was talking about, further down, from seeds, from pesticide or crop protection and fertilizer. People don't realize it just that from packaging, labeling are considered non-essential, therefore they cannot function or they cannot go back to do production, and therefore there's also a shortage of the surrounding peripheral materials for agriculture production. So I think those are one of the learnings that we came up also, because we cannot pack our food to be supplied to the hypermarket. So there's one component. So I just want to go back to Pak Hari is on the technology and agriculture input from your farmers or from the government perspective. What are you hearing or what you're seeing in terms of what is the government trying to promote to make sure that we also cover? You said, right now they have been accredited as essential industry. What else from your perspective is missing or the government could do to ensure much more better operational in the value chain?
Well, right now, the government has included the national police to ensure proper and smooth distribution from the producer to the consumer. I've seen from the news, I think they're trying to put more national police into guarding the distribution. So that's one thing that I know the government is in terms of distribution. However, another thing that I recently noticed is that the agriculture ministry, they have set up 4 strategies to strengthen the national food logistics system. The first one is they're trying to increase production in the deficit region by bringing production closer to consumer. In addition, there's also a program to add new planting area in the deficit area. The second thing is the improvement of the distribution system. This is done by increasing the smooth distribution of food, which includes the supply chain simplification and distribution intervention program, the development of national and regional food hubs, and the development of e-commerce trading system. Now, speaking of e-commerce trading system, like myself has been doing all of my groceries through e-commerce trading system. Right now, I think they are the winner in this industry because the economy right now has been moving to a contactless economy, and by all means we all here trying to avoid going to the market. And if there's anything that we can do by simply turn on our laptop and just purchase and then use our credit card, and I think that's the trend, the ongoing trend in the future. Now, going back to the agriculture ministry, so another thing that they're trying to do is through institutional food distribution. So it's a coordination and synergy between logistical actors, players, which includes a program to strengthen the role of a logistical players. The goal is it's an establishment of logistic institution and harmonization of regulation and policies in the food logistics system. Now, lastly, is they're trying to increase local food consumption because they realize that import and export is not going as smoothly as we all expect. So a lot of the campaign right now is trying to increase local food consumption movement. So the tagline is to like buy local food or something similar like that. So that's what we're doing right now.
Thank you, Pak Gusti. So, Mr. Che and Mr. Wong, you are a farmer yourself. So during this COVID situation, did you face any difficulty in getting seeds, crop protection materials, fertilizer? Was that supply chain disrupted? If yes, what could we do to make sure that you as a farmer continue to be able to access those technology? And what else do you like to see differently moving forward if there's a next MCO coming in? How can we tell the government to be more prepared? How do we get the government to be prepared for the next MCO?
Well, at the beginning stage, when there's a lockdown for most of these chemical shop or dealers, farmers are fear that they cannot get supply of these inputs, especially pesticides, chemical, fertilizer, seeds, because around 85% of these items, imported items, inputs items are imported, including some of these agricultural machineries. And during the time we contacted Ministry of Agriculture seeking for help, and luckily within 1 or 2 weeks, these chemical dealers are allowed to resume. So farmers did not face much problem in getting the supply. But we only fear that during the COVID-19, supplies from overseas, as I mentioned, imported items will be affected. Until today, I will say supply does not affect our industry so much. In future, we hope that especially seeds, when quality seeds is concerned, because Malaysia is not doing so well in these seeds, especially in the R&D. So we need to import good quality and reliable seeds from neighboring countries and even as far as Europe countries. For other essential items, only thing is that we feel that the prices of these inputs are getting higher because of exchange currency. So that also help to increase our cost of production. In Malaysia, we will say in these ASEAN regions, our cost of production in this vegetable industry is one of the highest in this region as compared to neighboring countries, because our cost of labor costs, other inputs are higher than even surrounding Indonesia, Vietnam, or Thailand. So we urge the government to give subsidy or incentive for farmers. Recently, we also try to seek government to release some of this production incentive, because as far as the year 2008, the Ministry of Agriculture through the Ministry of Finance have released production incentive to the growers to ease our cost of production. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Wong, thank you, Mr. Che. Mr. Wong, any comments from your side?
Yeah, Mr. Tan, I would like to add on a little bit on, especially on the fertilizer part. In Cameron Highland, there's a lot of growers. They are going for the drip fertigation or the NFT fertigation method. So early stage of the restriction movement order in Malaysia or MCO, that we are actually facing a huge issue, because all the fertilizer, especially those fertilizer coming from overseas, was disrupted due to reduction on the sea shipment. So that has a little bit disruption on that, and later our fertilizer supplier in Malaysia, they're trying hard to get the fertilizer come in to resolve the issue. Besides on the disruption on the supply, and I would like to share a little bit few project or initiative that Mr. Chai and myself, we are involved in this Malaysian Productivity Council. That we had this initiative program is called Malaysian Agro-Food Nexus, that we are involved in this committee, that we are going to push on the technology side, or especially on the IoT farm technology, whereby the farmer can get the sensor from this program, and trying to encourage farmer to turn to a smart agriculture farming. And besides that, we also launched a program called EcoLink Toolbox, whereby all the farming information, various of the growing technology and the marketing information can be found in this EcoLink Toolbox as well. That's for my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. That is really inspirational by working with MPO and also with your agro productivity nexus. I think we'll come back to this shortly. I just want to get on to Roger. Over to you. Can you speak a bit louder? You're slightly out, closer to your voice is slightly softer, so closer to the microphone, please. So going back is from your side, did you see any impact? And then is things getting better for you to access any of the technology in agriculture, better seeds, quality seeds and quality materials to help you protect your crops as you plant through this season?
Yeah, actually in the last few months, early this year, we already requested government to put in place all the necessary intervention materials and all the necessary shipment, at least getting in touch with the authorities, for example, the Fertilizer Pesticides Authority, to make an inventory whether all of these inputs is already in the field, because 3 months later, there will be planting. But unfortunately, because of the COVID, there was a on hold of all the shipments, and somehow there was a disruption of flow of inputs, no? And there was also an experience of fertilizer shortfall in the field right now, considering the government has bidded for intervention a fertilizer which is a big volume, and the normal flow of fertilizer to the field and to the farmers were disrupted also, no? So all of these things, we made intervention earlier this year so that government will be able to know, and they will be able to give the information to the farmers whether or not these are all of the inputs, all of the seeds, all of the fertilizers is already in the field or in the regions where it is mostly needed, no? But anyway, recently we understand that all of the shipping flows is already normal. So there are still people that is saying that there are no seeds in their areas, there are no fertilizer in their areas. Maybe these are just can be counted in our fingers. No, this might not represent the whole region of the country. To give emphasis also, the government has given us help, not only for the corn industry by way of putting up the Kadiwa centers. No, the Kadiwa centers where the government through the Department of Agriculture is a market for the farmers, and these Kadiwa centers goes to the public, goes to the villages, goes to the city, goes to the farmland area to sell the produce of the agriculture. No, so these are the things that the government has given us in terms of help for the agriculture. For the technology, for example, we have a challenge because last year and early this year, we warned the government to help us in the prevention of PAO, or the pole army worm, because we believe that in the coming planting time, there will be susceptible plants susceptible for fall armyworm. So we told government that as early as January, February, all of this material intervention should already be in the field. But unfortunately, it was not followed. So right now, you can experience, or we experience in the corn areas in the 16 regions of the country, the effects of the fall armyworm. No? So these are really the challenge, and we need cooperation from private sector and government, that we will be able to at least harmonize our acts together and move forward for the betterment of farmers and agriculture as a whole.
Thank you, Roger. One question before I move to the next topic is, you correctly said across Asia Pacific, the average age of farmers are 50 to 60 years old, and they are considered high risk. So not only farmers on the field, but even our transporters, our packers are high risk, and also the density of our workers on the field. So one of the programs that we are interested in is, how do we teach the farmers to wear PPE? How do we teach safe distancing on the farm? So maybe to our three farmers on the ground, Roger, Mr. Che, and Mr. Wong, how can we work with you to come up with a program to get our farmers to know the risk and to be able to wear PPE to protect themselves on the farm, because we cannot lose our farming community. This is very critical. So maybe Mr. Wong first, how can we work with you? How can industry work with you to help protect your value chain and your production team?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tan. I would like to split into this situation into two categories. One is in the farm operation, and the other one is in the packaging house for the sorting and the packaging of our fresh produce material. Yet in the farm, since it's an open field, we don't have much of the issue to protect our workers, but we follow the government social distancing SOP, working standard operating procedure, whereby before our workers getting into the field to work, we will record their body temperature, and then we will record it twice, once in the morning and the other one during the lunch. And after that, farmers, our workers, some of them, they are wearing masks during working in the field, and others don't. In Cameron Highland, it's rather a little bit of some workers found a difficulty to breathe after they're wearing such a long time with the mask, face mask. Whereas in the packing house, I think PPE would be an option, but it depends. We offer some of our workers to wear masks and the PPE as well, but we don't see a necessary unless they are handling the final stage of the food processing procedure, whereby they need to ensure themselves not transmitting any viruses if there is any workers are get infected to the food and to the supply chains. So I would appreciate if we could work with CropLife in getting those PPE. Would be the later stage in the sorting facilities, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Yeah, Mr. Che, what about your side?
Yeah, for vegetable growers, I think our SOP is quite similar to what Mr. Wong have mentioned in their farms. For the time being, most farmers, they restricted these workers to come up to the town or do any shopping. They only allowed to work in the farm.
Wow.
And after the working hours, usually after 7 evening, they were told to stay in the farm and keep a distance away, as what we mentioned. So I can say most farmers are aware of this pandemic risk, and they give a good advice to these workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger, what about the situation in Philippines? How can we help to you to protect the farming community?
Yeah, actually, it's still a challenge, no? Farmers resist using masks in the field. No,
Wow.
Even though we really tried to persuade them to use masks and wash hands. Sometimes only wash hands can be done, but putting up mask and PPA, because in the open field, it's in the Philippines, the condition is very hot. So it's really a challenge, but I believe that with just a little persuasion, we'll be able to do the at least intervention through using PPEs. No, right now in the field, we are not in the practice of testing temperatures of our farmers. What we only do is that we encourage them to wear mask and wash hands. So that's the most that we can do right now.
Great, thank you. So we are last few minutes already towards the session. So I'm going to go into the question and answer. So one of the questions, this is open to everyone. Due to the pandemic and also with the aging of the population, so Mr. Che and Mr. Wong, with your IoT that you are introducing to MPO, are you seeing a renewed interest in having more younger generations of farmers joining Cameron Highland or across in Malaysia? Are you seeing that movement, younger people coming into agriculture?
Mr. Tan, I would like to answer first. Sorry, Mr. Chai. Since I initiated this program in our country, and I do see a lot of young generation. They really love the young technology, especially they know what is going on in their farm, in their field, by having the IoT as an assistant to tell them what is the life condition for their soil, the plant condition, and the weather condition. That actually really help them to predict what will happen next, or what are the scenarios that they need to take care of their plant, especially in the crop productions. And we also see a lot of agrochemical company, they are interested in getting some of the information. How can they come in during what time, what season, and what condition to help the farmer to give them the right chemical to help them to protect their crop. And we see a lot of young farmer, they're coming in already, swimming into the agriculture line to see a great opportunity, whether they are in the technology line or maybe they are in the agro chemical input or the fertilizer, or later on the post processing line as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Che, your comment?
Yeah, most of the vegetable growers in the country, we found that aging group, 50 years and above, and even some touching 70, 80, still working in the farm. But now it's happy to see that younger generation are coming back because they can use some of this high-tech technology, online system. And especially during the beginning of this year, quite a lot of them came back because of unemployment or have been
retrenched.
Yes. So they shift and then they're coming back. Now our state government have also launched a land policy. So they hope that new generation will come back and take over the farming activities. Especially now we go towards we are going towards food security and also food safety movement. So these young generation, I can foresee quite a lot of them are coming back. And also not only in the farm management, quite a lot of them are involved in this marketing or as export of flowers, export of vegetables. Thank you.
Thank you. Pak Gusti from Indonesia, any movement you're seeing, any attraction of what do you call attracting younger people back to agriculture post pandemic or during pandemic time?
Well, prior to pandemic time, the trend has been shifting from previously we have pretty much no youngster works in the field or even try to tap the industry. Right now, we have seen a lot of the new startup which are very successful tapping the industry, even though most of them have been focusing on the marketplace. However, it's so most of them have been focusing on providing marketplace for the farmers to sell their product. However, some of them actually have their own field. So and a lot of them and I've seen one startup where they focus on doctor for agriculture, where every farmer can just simply take a picture and like, hey, what's wrong with my crop or something like that. And it's a growing industry. I think people have realized that in Indonesia is a agriculture country, so we're hoping the trend is the trend will keep increase.
Thank you. So lastly, Roger, over your side, because you keep on talking about the aging population, which is correct and true. What else can we do differently to attract, or there are already a significant young people joining you in the farm?
Yeah, that's really a big challenge, Sir Tan, because we know for a fact that poverty incidence in our country is found in the farming families, no? And in the country, the small holdings of farms, no, we only have about 5 hectares per family. So if you're going to have economy of scale for 5 hectares, then it's not really that lucrative, no. But with this advent of COVID, people are already restricted to move out. So the young people is trying to help the father and the mother on the online thing, no? So marketing now is being done online through their children. So in other words, in a way, you're enticing your children to be involved somehow first in marketing and later probably graduate into production area, no? So this is a good thing. This is a good encouragement, so that we'll be able to really encourage all of them, no? So but there's still a challenge in terms of intervention, because in the country today, in our country, we only have about 0.5-0.7% of mechanization. Unlike other countries whereby they are already about 20 or more mechanization. So we still need to put investment, particularly from government, to increase our mechanization, so that this will more or less be attractive to the new millennials to engage in farming through technology. But without those intervention, I don't think that we are seeing young farmers in the farm.
Thank you. So we have essentially come to the end of the 1 hour slot, and really appreciate your insights and your recommendation. And we're going to compile all of this and put it as a talking point to the ASEAN Mini-SecGen meeting that is upcoming. We're going to provide this input also to the respective country and especially Secretary Dar on each of the Ministry of Agriculture, to say that, as we prepare for if there is a second wave, but nevertheless, we need to help protect the malnutrition, because the poverty rate is going to come up, because the impact of COVID is going to come in Q3, Q4, and it's been a long-term effect. So we want to make sure the governments are more proactive in protecting the whole value chain, and also to be able to support farmers to value capture. And like Mr. Chair and Wong was saying, how can we get seeds fertilizers, pesticide in a timely manner, managing the cost so that we can continue to produce safe, secure, and sustainable food system across the region. Again, I thank you on behalf of CropLife and our local association. Thank you, Sir Ed, also Marie, Pak Agong, for setting this meeting up. We hopefully will have a second round of conversation, and we'd like to hear more on the IoT component that you all are embracing and moving on to. Again, thank you very much. Have a good day. Stay safe. Talk to you all soon.